Okay, I guess we're ready to begin. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the OSBC Job Satisfaction and Productivity webinar. This is Maida Sanchez, Executive Director of Ohio Sustainable Business Council. At the OSBC, we work statewide throughout Ohio, advocating for a vibrant, just, and sustainable economy. We have member businesses that are progressive minded, and some of the issues that they care about is, in addition to clean water and good other good sustainable business practices, is good workplace practices. And here we have an educational webinar for you on such practices. We have Jennifer Criswell of Mirror Coaching LLC. Jennifer is an experienced HR professional. And here I'm going to just hand it off to Jennifer.
Well, happy Friday, everyone. And again, as Maida said, thank you for tuning in today. Before we get started, I just want to leave with you a quote. And as we go through our information today, let the quote resonate in your minds. Employees who believe that management is concerned about them as a whole person, not just an employee, are more productive, more satisfied, more fulfilled. Satisfied employees mean satisfied customers, which lead to profitability. And also, I would like to share with you that in 2013, there was a Gallup survey. Only 13% of American employees are engaged. 90% of employees don't enjoy what they're doing. In 2003, the Gallup poll found that 40% of the companies listed on Fortune magazine's America's Best Companies to Work For survey are also on the Fortune 500 list of America's most successful companies. It costs American businesses as much as $55 billion per year in turnover of employees. Are your employees a part of this statistics? So we're going to get started today. Our webinar is entitled Job Satisfaction and Productivity, How Happy Employees Lead to Business Success. Today, our agenda will cover employment practices, company culture, recruitment and retention, relationship between workplace satisfaction and productivity, and then we will have questions and answers. We will also have questions and comments as we complete each segment of the webinar. So let's begin. We want to know why employment practices are so critical. Well, the first thing they do, they prevent law violations. Good employment practices are key. They prevent wrongful termination, sexual harassment, discrimination, and wage and hour law violations. I will just say that the EEOC has beefed up its staff with investigators, and currently the top priority on their list is for employee privacy. There's been a lot of cases where employees feel like their privacy is violated. That's why it is critical to make sure that you are following good employment practices. Employee handbook. I get asked a lot of time from small businesses, why do I need an employee handbook? We're like family. We can all just get along, go along to get along. Well, you need an employee handbook because it lists the laws. It changes your practices as they're changed. The book should be amended, and all employees should have a written copy of the employee handbook, and they should also sign the handbook acknowledgement form. So let's talk about what leads to sustainable wage developments. There are two types of wages. We are all very familiar with the minimum wage, but maybe not so much with the living wage. So let me tell you that the living wage for Franklin County for one adult is $9.78. Just think about that for a moment. One adult living on $9.78. So what do you think the living wage is for two adults and a child? I'm glad you asked me. The living wage for 2 adults and a child is $11.88. And we all know that our minimum wage is $8.15 an hour for non-tip workers. So when we look at preventing law violations, look at the employee handbook, and we talk about those sustainable wages, they all go hand in hand to ensure that we are paying our employees a fair wage, that they're satisfied in their jobs, which we'll talk more about in the webinar. So we're going to continue with employment practices. You know, there are many businesses that still choose to have the low wages, the low wages for their employees. And they consist of, when an employer is at a low wage, it affects their flexibility. It affects them micromanaging their team members. It affects high turnover, absenteeism, disciplinary actions, lack of engagement, lack of dedication, and loyalty commitment. And employees feel like they have no voice. So now we're going to stay on employment practices, and we're going to talk about what businesses that are on the high road for wages, what they have found in their employee practices. Higher wages motivate employees to work harder, motivate employees to be more productive and capable. You're able to recruit more employees. It limits low turnover, reduce the cost of hiring and training new workers. Higher wages enhance quality and customer service. Higher wages reduce disciplinary problems and absenteeism. Workers excessively concerned about their wages are less productive at work. Another mechanism by which higher wages can yield benefits include higher wages are associated with better health, less illness, and more stamina, which enhance worker productivity. Greater job satisfaction can result in less conflict between employers and labor groups. And there may be some of you on the call that deal with labor groups. And the two things that labor groups are most concerned with are the wages and also the benefits for their employees. So before we move to company culture, do I have any questions or comments that you want to chat about? Okay, well, we're going to move into company culture. An organization's culture, I have the definition there for you, but basically it's the expectations, experiences, philosophy, and values that hold it together. So with that definition, I want you to think about, what is your company's culture? How is it defined? Is it defined by your values, your mission, your vision, and or your norms? Is your culture top down or collaborative? What I mean by top down, do the direction come from the C-suite down to middle management to carry out? Or is it a collaborative culture? Is it open? Is it closed? Is it consistent, or is it consistently changing and evolving? Does your organization serve the community where it lives? How engaged are you in the community where you sit? Are you and your team members doing activities? Are you going to the local food bank? Are you serving the AARP and the different missions that they have set up? Are you giving to United Way? Are you serving and helping with Habitat for Humanity? What are you doing in your area to support the community in which you live? Do you and your employees know the culture? Are you able to articulate the culture? And if so, would the message be the same? Just think about those things for a moment. You can stay here. Employee engagement. It's the extent to which the employee feels passionate about their jobs and are committed to the organization and put discretionary effort into their work. Now, there is a difference between engagement and insatisfaction. But before I tell you the difference in engagement and satisfaction, let's talk about that engagement piece. It says passionate. When you're passionate about something, you give it your all. You do the best job that you can do. You're in it to win it. You're in it to win it. You do what you need to do. You go over and beyond. You're making suggestions. You're giving advice. You're doing everything that you can do for your company to succeed. So my question is, do you have passionate employees? That equals engagement. Are they engaged? Satisfaction describes whether employees are happy and content fulfilling their desires and needs at work. Employee satisfaction is a factor of employee motivation, goal achievement, positive employee morale in the workplace. So when we look at employee engagement and employee satisfaction, which is the better of the two for your organization? Yes, we want to have satisfied employees, but how do we take them to that engagement level? That's the level where you want your staff to be engaged, because when they're engaged, they have a heart for service. They're 100% responsible. They're 100% accountable. So just think about your company's culture and what you can do as a leader to help with that culture, to help define that culture, to help design the culture, so that not only is it known within the organization, but is known outside of the organization in the community in which you reside. So we'll take a pause and see if there's any questions or comments in our chat box, and we'll be able to answer you back. So feel free to write a comment. Just say hi if you're out there. Okay, we're going to move into what I love to do. And anyone on the call that knows me knows I love recruitment. Recruitment is my passion in HR, because if you do not get the recruitment piece right, it goes downhill, because recruitment is our people, and it is our people that run our business, correct? So let's talk about a recruitment strategy. You say, Jennifer, I don't need a recruitment strategy. Yes, you do. And let me tell you why. First of all, a recruitment strategy is a way to measure results and determine if your strategy is working. It's a document that outlines your recruitment needs and goals and how to achieve them. The recruitment strategy includes staffing needs and any issues or weaknesses. It also includes your budget, your goals, seasonal fluctuations for those that have a peak season and a non-peak season. And it includes to know how you're doing with those things. I look at a recruitment strategy as a SWOT analysis. A SWOT analysis measures an organization's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So when you outline your recruitment strategy, you can outline it to what a SWOT analysis is. I have a lot of people that say, oh, I have a temporary service. I have a staffing service hiring my people. I don't need a recruitment strategy. You definitely need a recruitment strategy then, because they can have an effect on your bottom line, which may not build your profitability, and you still do not have the correct person that you need in place to do the job. Retention strategy. I always say hire with retention in mind. A retention strategy refers to the ability of an organization to retain its people. It's simple. In a business setting, the goal of employers is usually to decrease turnover, thereby decreasing training costs, recruitment costs, and loss of talent and organizational knowledge. Now let's talk about loss of organizational knowledge. I've worked in several companies where the leader has decided to resign. So the leader resigns, put his or her notice in, and we realize, wow, processes are not documented. Policies pertaining to that department are not documented, because when there were issues and or concerns, you go to the leader to get the answer. Now the leader is leaving. So everybody is scrambling around trying to get the processes documented, the policies documented. Well, that leader that's there for 2 weeks that just gave his or her notice, they're there physically. Mentally, they've checked out. Mentally, they're thinking about being on the golf course golfing. They're thinking about sitting at home with their kids or just laying on the couch and watching Maury all day long while we're scrambling around trying to get the information. That brings me to another webinar that I plan to do on succession planning. Because if you have succession planning, when those openings arise and when that happens, you have someone that's able to step right into that position. So now, do you understand why it's so important to have a recruitment strategy that ties into your retention strategy? Okay, enough on that. I know I could go all day long, but I don't want to overwhelm anyone. Interview process. Tell me about your interview process. I look at an interview process in 2 steps, as open or collaborative. I'm sorry, as closed or collaborative. A closed interview process is where the recruiter or the HR person calls the individual and gives them a phone screen, and the hiring manager interviews and hires. A more collaborative interview process is if you're hiring an HR person, that person interviews with every leader of every department that position will touch. Why do we want to do that? We do that for a lot of reasons. Sometimes we hire in a vacuum and we miss red flags because we're so excited about this person and what they will do for the organization, or even what they will do for the position, that we don't allow ourselves to see the red flags. When you collaborate with the other business leaders in the organization that position will touch, you have an opportunity to calibrate at the end of that interview section to all come together and list your questions, your concerns, the good points, the bad points. Then the hiring manager, if that's the candidate of choice, can go back to the candidate and re-interview them, asking them specific questions related to the red flags that you are seeing. So this is a win-win in my experience. Also, we have different types of assessments you can take: the Myers-Briggs or the DISC personality assessment test. So just think about that for a moment. Employee profile. How many of you heard of an employee profile? What is it? How does it benefit the organization? An employee profile is a list of your top performer, just like a succession plan and have A, B, C performers. You take your top performer, you list his or her characteristics of success, attitudes, skills, and knowledge. And when you start to hire that person, the next person to come into that department, you mimic the characteristics of your high-performing person. And that is how you build an employee profile. So you have an employee profile, so you would hire to the employee profile. Now I'm going to ask you another question to think about. Do you hire for attitude or do you hire for aptitude? And I don't think I need to explain the difference between attitude and aptitude and why it's important to hire for aptitude. The onboarding process. I get a lot of pushback from different companies saying, oh, I don't need an onboarding process. That's what HR do. People think the onboarding process is all of the HR compliant paperwork that the individual completes on their first day of hire. But that is not what the onboarding process is. An onboarding process is the way you acclimate and welcome your new employee into the organization, providing him or her with the tools, resources, and knowledge to become successful and productive. The onboarding process does not start the day the employee starts. The onboarding process starts long before the person is hired. It starts in your culture. It starts in your engagement piece. It's in your recruitment and retention strategy, and it's in your interview process and your employee profile. It was noted that companies that had an onboarding process in 6.4 months, their person was at 100% productivity. A company that did not have an onboarding process, their employee was at, it took them 7.9 months to become productive. Having an onboarding process, you're able to have a higher professional level, lower stress on both you and the new person. And it also confirms that your hiring choice was right. And just let me point out something else about onboarding. On day one, whatever tools are needed for a person to start their job should be on their desk and ready to go. It's nothing worse than getting an offer letter that says, "We're so excited to have you join us. We value you. We look forward to seeing you on day one." And you walk in your office, you don't have a desktop, you don't have a laptop, you don't have a cell phone, you don't have nothing that you need to do your job with. And you're sitting there waiting for someone to let you know what's going on, waiting for that wonderful IT person to spring into action to put those things on your desk, and your new person is sitting there. So what are they thinking? Well, let me tell you what they're thinking. I think I'm going to look for a new job. I made a wrong decision. You don't care enough about me to make sure I have the I need to have from day one. That's critical. So just think about these things. The recruitment and retention process is so important. And last but not least, do you know your turnover costs and how to calculate it? Turnover is critical to that bottom line of every business, whether you're two-person business or a 20,000 person business. The easiest way to calculate turnover is to take the number of employees that you hire and divide it by the number of employees that's left, and that gives you your turnover. Some companies do it monthly, some companies do it quarterly, semi-annually, or yearly. But you need to know your turnover numbers. That's important because it will help you with your recruitment strategy, how you design it. It helps you with retention, and it also helps you in that interview process and building that profile. So we're going to check again to see if there's any questions or comments come in so that we can answer. Okay, we're going to move into relationship between workplace satisfaction and productivity. What is it? Well, on the slide, you will see that increased job satisfaction. Would you love to increase your job satisfaction by 6.6% productivity per hour? How can you do that? You can do that with some of the things that we talked about. Productivity in sales. Productivity in sales. Harvard's Business Review showed an average 31% more productivity and 37% higher sales when employees are happy and satisfied. So, how do we drive to succeed? How do we drive our employees with the willingness to refer? How do we increase that dedication? All of that is done through happiness and satisfaction, which impact productivity. So if you take the time to recruit the right person, you take the time to build the profile and recruit to the profile that you've built for that position. If you take time to have a retention strategy, all of those things will give you better workplace satisfaction and productivity from the person that you hired. It's nothing worse than realizing at day two into the job that you've hired the wrong person. And now you need to go back and start that process all over again. It is a very costly process because you take into considerations the recruiter's salary, you take in consideration the way you advertise, whether it's on the internet or the newspaper, all of those things are costs. You take into consideration benefits costs. All of those factors are incorporated when you look at the cost of hiring someone. That's why it's really important to make sure that you hire the best candidate possible. Now we're going to talk about those 7 vital trends that disrupt today's workplace. I bet you didn't think that there were 7. I would say there's probably more than 7 vital trends. But what I want to do today is point out those 7 vital trends. Reports say that only 42% of employees know the organization's vision, mission, and values. What are our leaders doing when they are not promoting the organization's vision, mission, and values? I make it a point with my team in every meeting, we go over the vision, mission, and values to make sure that we are aligned to the organization's vision, mission, and values. Role and responsibility. 82% said that their managers clearly define and outline their role and responsibility. Well, how can we get the other 19% of our managers to define the role and responsibility? It's nothing worse than working in a job and you don't know your role and responsibility until you get your review and you're not doing so well. That is not the time to let someone know that they're not working well. That's why that should be defined in the job description on the front end and not when you give a review. And that's just one example I have. Employee happiness. Do you think employee happiness is tied to coworkers or is it tied to their direct manager? Well, for those of you that said it's tied to their direct manager, that is incorrect. Employee happiness is tied to their coworkers. So let me just ask the question, what do you think is the disconnect between the direct manager and the employee when it comes to company happiness? What is that disconnect? How can we solve for that disconnect? What can we do so that more of our direct managers are actively engaged in the process of ensuring that our employees are happy? I think that's some good food for thought. Love for coworkers. It says that team play and collaboration between team members. Well, that's great. There was a time in the workplace when I worked in the workplace where it was hard getting people to work in teams. It was hard getting people to get along, but now that's the norm in organizations. So again, where is the disconnect with the direct manager? We really need to work on our disconnects. We need to define those disconnects and work on them. And when we have a strong company culture that defines it, when we have employees that are engaged, and in this point, we want to have our direct managers with the level of engagement, accountability, responsibility, and a heart for service, then we can pick up and kind of dissect where some of the drop-off points are. Employee suggestions. 18% of organizations don't support employee suggestions. Now, I would think that's one thing any company can do without a cost. It can be a cost on the back end if you want to implement someone's suggestion and give them a gift card to Amazon or something like that. But why would you not have an employee suggestion box or program? Because that's where innovation comes from. That's where brainstorming comes from. That's where you can take your profitability to a whole different level when you listen to employees. How many of us have employees that we are not utilizing their full potential? That's another webinar. So think about that. Think about how can I get the best out of my employee? The way to get the best out of the employee, they have to be satisfied in the workplace. They have to be engaged. So we're going to talk about peer-to-peer recognition. 36% says that a regular system that boosts intra-organization recognition is critical. Peer-to-peer recognition is critical. There should be a program, again, like the suggestion program, doesn't have to cost a lot of money, where peers can nominate their peers for work. And I can tell you from previous experience, it goes a long way. It speaks volumes. You can reward the person that wins with the dinner with the CEO, with the dinner with their director. You can give them a gas card, just little things that our employees are looking for in order to be satisfied in the workplace. The last but not least, the top factor when determining employee happiness is management transparency. That's a big buzzword now in most of our organizations. Manager transparency. It is important, if you are in a leadership role, to be as transparent with your team members as you can. That means being transparent about their job performance. If they're not performing, we need to have those hard conversations with them, and we need to give them an action plan so that they can perform. Whatever the issues are, we need to become transparent with our employees. If you're unsure of how to handle those conversations, because some of them could be quite difficult, and we want to make sure that we're appropriate in our conversations, then we need to seek out our HR person, or we need to seek out a director or assistant director in order to have those conversations. But you owe it to yourself and to your team member to share that transparency with them. So now we're going to talk about 6 tips for enhancing employee satisfaction. I told you about the 7 disruptive things that's in our workplace today. So now I want to share with you the 6 tips that enhance employee satisfaction. Listen to your employees. It's critical. All they want you to do, they just want to be heard. Sometimes we get busy and we get caught up with the day-to-day things that we're doing, that we don't take time to listen to them. Have one-on-one meetings with your employees. If you can't do it bi-weekly, do it monthly. You'll be surprised the information that comes out of a one-to-one meeting with your employee. Avoid hovering. It kills the productivity. It hampers employee satisfaction. If you have an employee that you need to hover around, that you need to say, when you finish step 1, let me know. When you finish step 2, let me know. Well, then you've made a wrong hiring decision. And again, it goes back to having that employee profile available to make sure that you're hiring the right person. No one wants to come to work and be micromanaged at any level. So if you have that employee that you feel you have to do that, then you need to have a conversation with yourself and say, I think I've made a wrong decision. Try correcting it. Have a meeting, sit the employee down, go back over job expectations, job responsibilities and tasks to make sure everyone's on board. Allow for creativity and personalization. A lot of organizations are going to open concept where we don't have a lot of rooms. You don't have the offices anymore. So everybody has this 4x6 cubicle, if you would. So we don't want people putting up inappropriate pictures and things like that, and that's fine. But we still have to set some guidelines for people to be able to personalize their space so that they can bring a picture from home, so they can bring a plan in or something, just so when they come in their workplace every day, they can say, okay, this is me and I'm ready to start my day. It allows some downtime for brainstorming. Google, Microsoft, and some of the big other technology companies, they encourage it. When they have projects, they allow team members during their regular work time, not after work, not before work, but during their regular work time, to get together and work on different projects. You'll be amazed at the creativity, the innovation that comes out of that. And don't just have people from the same department. It needs to be cross-functional people. You need to have people from different departments getting together to brainstorm things. Permit telecommuting. I had one manager tell me, I can't trust them to telecommute and work from home. And my response was, well, why did you hire them? If you can't trust them from home, why did you hire them? Why are we hiring people that we can't trust to get the job done. Again, it goes back to the recruiting strategy. It goes back to the engagement piece, the satisfaction piece. So make sure you're hiring people that if you can permit telecommuting, it could be once a week, twice a week, and maybe you can build it up a little bit. Let them go home and work from home if they can. That's a flexibility. Provide competitive benefits and perks. Again, telecommuting is a perk if you can provide it. Also, creating a quiet space, having team building exercises, having childcare expenses covered. I know my company this year we have the benefit for bus passes. They pay for their bus passes and they get X amount of dollars back for buying a bus pass. It's all kind of things that you can do to promote competitive benefits and perks. Because believe me, your competitor, they're doing these things. And that's the key here. You want to get in front of your competitors, or you want to stand strong right there with them and say, I'm a strong player in this industry as well. And last but not least, care for them as individuals, not hired labor. Respect your employees. Respect goes a long way. I hear a lot of people say, I'm here because of my supervisor. You know, the pay's not good, yada, yada, yada. But I'm here because my supervisor respects me and I respect him or her. So we're going to stop at this point, and this brings us to end on our webinar presentation. And I just want to say a couple things before we go into question and answers. All the things that Maida talked about, that the Ohio Sustainable Business Council is doing to promote employers that have the best workplace, all of these tips and all of these things that I gave you, they do the same thing. And I know a lot of smaller businesses, I can't do everything. You don't need to do everything at once. Not even if you're a large business. What you need to do is sit down, build a strategy, decide what's most important for your organization at this point and where it is in time. I would say, without doubt, the culture is the most important piece, because if you have your culture defined, then you know the type of person that you're looking for, you know the type of vendor you want to do business with. It just sets the stage, such as a business plan when you started your business. So all of these things are key components in building a productive work environment for your employees. And I want to read something to you. Employee satisfaction and overall happiness is proven to be a surefire way to motivate employees to do more for their organizations. Paying attention to their needs makes employees more productive. They try harder and are more loyal to their employers. Ensuring long-term employee satisfaction is key to organizational success. It reduces disruptive tendencies that we just spoke about. And one frequent disruptive tendency that affects all of our bottom line is called turnover. So now we have a period for questions and answers. So I don't know if anyone has any questions that I can answer. And if so, you can just type them in. Okay, we're going to end the presentation with take the next step. Stand with the Ohio Sustainable Business Council. Endorse the following principles as the best practices of high road employers. A high road employer will provide family-friendly benefits, offer flexibility, pay a livable and fair wage, we discussed both, invest in growth and development, cultivate inclusion, govern fairly and transparently, engage with communities, manage the supply chain responsible, drive environmental sustainability, and promote health and safety. I want to say thank you to all of those that attended. If you have any questions, you know how to reach me offline. I'll be more than happy to talk further with you about any of the things that you see here. And I'll let Maida close out our webinar.
Thank you, Jennifer. That was great. And again, if you have questions, this webinar will remain on YouTube, and you can always put comments in there. You can visit our website at osbcouncil.org and visit there and reach out to us. We would love to have you join us if you want to take the next step in promoting a sustainable economy for Ohio, and share with us your issues. In addition to workplace issues, we also work on a number of other issues statewide. Please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you for having me.
And you all have a wonderful afternoon. Have a great weekend.